Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
Two guests on today's show. In segment 1, it'll be Corning Republican Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. In segment 2, it'll be Hornell former Mayor Sean Hogan, the Steuben County Democratic Chairman. First, welcoming Assemblyman Palmesano. Assemblyman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Good to be with you again.
Okay, the governor released his budget on Tuesday. Let's get your thoughts on it.
Well, I guess to say I'm concerned is an understatement. The governor certainly, it's within his right, unveil a bold, aggressive budget plan in State of the State address, what his priorities are for the state. I'm just not sure that his priorities are the right priorities for the state, particularly for our area, in the area I represent here in upstate New York and the Southern Tier and Finger Lakes region. Highlighting the need to legalize marijuana, I think is just, let's face it, a bad policy. Legalizing marijuana shouldn't be used to grab revenue. I mean, basically, you're talking about putting a stamp of approval on saying it's okay for people to use marijuana. What are we supposed to say to our children? Well, if the state of New York says it's okay, why shouldn't we be able to do it? And we all know that it's a gateway drug, and we have a heroin, and opioid crisis going on in our epidemic and crisis going on in our state. That's all we need to do is have people trying drugs, and which will lead into other drug use. We know it does. We know marijuana is a gateway drug. I think making that being a focal point, he talked about it during the campaign after Cynthia Nixon pushed him that way. Even just a couple of short years ago, Governor Cuomo said it acknowledged it was a gateway drug. That hasn't changed. It still is a gateway drug. It's just now he's doing it for political posturing to appease a liberal, progressive base in the state of New York, which is unfortunately, it's our kids and families who are going to pay for, legalizing this. Wanting to, make the DREAM Act legal in New York State so undocumented or illegal citizens can get access to tuition assistance programs and
for college.
I think that's.
Are we talking college or primary education, high school? What are we talking?
College funding, so the TAP program specifically, like to be able to get access to those, taxpayer dollars for college. And obviously I'm sympathetic to the case, but I don't think that's necessarily should be the priority. That's something they're going to push through. Obviously we passed through a series of voting reforms the other day, but he didn't talk about any dollars to back any of those voting reforms, which I don't think are really in the right idea for our state, and we can go through them one by one here in a little bit. I don't want to be all down on, I was very supportive, and I've always said this, I will work with the governor when I can work with him, and I will criticize and point out flaws in his policies when they are, and I've done that in the past, and I've been fair, I think, in my evaluation of certain things. Like, for example, his support for continuing the Water Infrastructure Act, I think, is very, very important. I think it's a very, very successful policy that we implemented as part of the budget in 2017-18. Significant funding. Our water and sewer infrastructure systems are breaking down all around our state, as are our roads and bridges. And I was encouraged to hear him talk about infrastructure. However, Brian, he mentioned nothing specifically about local infrastructure. He mentioned nothing specifically about parity between the upstate roads and bridges, whether at the local level or a state road, with parity with the DOT funding, because we know there's an MTA mess. I support helping the MTA. We have a lot of businesses like Alstom and other businesses that support the MTA, and we want to make sure we're supportive of that. But people have to recognize that we recognize the MTA is the lifeblood of downstate New York. But also, people have to recognize that our upstate roads and bridges and our local funding for infrastructure, which Sean Hogan knows, CHIPS program, is very important. It drives money right to the local locality so we can fix their roads and bridges. We need to make sure that's a priority as well, and I don't see that being a priority from the governor. He didn't put any more money in his budget for local infrastructure. Everything's flat, and he actually took away $65 million that was put in for winter recovery money. So he's talking about infrastructure, but not looking out for local infrastructure. He's talking a lot about the MTA and downstate.
So what you're saying is he's looking out for New York City infrastructure, but not not for upstate infrastructure. Assemblyman Palmesano, what do you make of the news that the 2% property tax cap won't apply to New York City taxpayers?
Well, I think it should apply for New York City taxpayers. I support the 2% property tax cap. The 2% property tax cap is a good thing. The thing about it is that he's never come through and fulfilled his promise for mandate relief. capping property tax is a good thing, but what we really want to do is reduce the property tax burden that senior citizens and individuals and families face across our state and across our region. The only way we can do that is dealing with mandate relief. The governor has refused to take on some mandate relief issues to provide that relief. Unfortunately, that's the case. The tax cap's a good thing, but we should be providing the mandate relief that would actually help drive down the cost to drive up local budgets and property taxes. If we were to deal with the mandate relief, then we could talk about reducing the property tax burden. Look at the Medicaid program. If the state assumed more of the cost of the Medicaid program or all of it, that would drive down local property taxes. That's something we need to do. So the tax cap's a good thing, but it's not a panacea all by itself. We need the mandate relief to really drive down property taxes.
Assemblyman Palmesano, Empire Report New York, I don't know if I can say it's an influential news page. I think it's a big news page, though. It's the one that looks like the Drudge Report. It's EmpireReportNewYork.com, and that's not the initials NY. Wanted to get your thoughts on this. On Tuesday, at the same time, Governor Andrew Cuomo, at 2 o'clock, when Governor Andrew Cuomo was delivering his budget proposal address, Empire Report New York had a couple headlines up there about how the child poverty rates are the worst in the state in Rochester and Buffalo. It seemed to be a direct slam on the governor. The timing of it, you couldn't question. It had something to do with the governor giving that 2 o'clock speech on a Tuesday. You talked to upstate politicians. Your thoughts on those stories and what? And I have to throw in what Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis, the former New York City mayoral candidate on the Republican side, said. She said this exemption for New York City taxpayers on the 2% property tax cap is going to cause more residents to leave the state, and I think she was talking upstate.
Right. I mean, I think the exemption should be New York City. It should apply to New York City. We're one state. It should apply to New York City as well. And the governor tries to say it doesn't impact them because of certain issues. And to me, it shouldn't be just us. It should be everybody. We're all one state. I mean, the other thing that I just want to point out with this process, Brian, the concern I have is the governor did nothing to reach out to Republicans. He basically is acknowledging that the Democratic Party has total control of our state government, which people should be concerned about because the policies we've seen coming forward is not in the best interest of upstate New York and the taxpayers and the property taxpayers. In fact, he did nothing to reach out. He had on his PowerPoint presentation in big letters, "We are in control." Well, the people voted. Be careful what you ask for because now we're going to have some challenges. Because I didn't hear the governor talk about some of our most vulnerable. You talk about childhood poverty. No one should be in poverty. We definitely need. Even in Steuben County, I know there's high cases of poverty. So we need to make sure, and there are community organizations that do so much good work to help, and we need to be supportive and a partner of that. But I want to talk about some of our most vulnerable New Yorkers, Brian, which the governor didn't address in his budget at all. It's the developmentally disabled. These are some of our most frail and vulnerable New Yorkers that we have. That, things that we all take for granted, maybe going to a movie, going outside, going to the store, for them sometimes it's very a treat or a bonus, because they work with staff and things of that nature. The governor didn't talk about providing the resources and services they need to improve their quality of life and quality of care, and that includes the living wage for those dedicated direct support professionals who work with them each and every day, working to improve their quality of life and their quality of care. The other thing I think that the governor needs to be more focused on, I think we need to have a zero in on this a lot more than he's talking about than other people are talking about. We need to have a much more bold and aggressive plan when it comes to dealing with this growing heroin and opioid epidemic crisis that we have in our state. This is something that knows no boundaries. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor. It doesn't care the color of your skin. It doesn't care if you're from upstate or downstate. It does not care if you're the suburbs or rural area. It does not care. It's non-discriminating. People are dying in our communities all across the state, and we need to be more aggressive, and it needs to be a total team approach. Federal government, state government, local governments, and our community partners. We need to all be working together to address this problem, and we need to put the resources there to back it up, and we need to put the staffing there to do it, and the beds there in the community. That needs to be a part of it. I didn't see much on that front. We need to do a lot more on that end of it, instead of focusing on legalizing marijuana and things of that nature. There's more we can do on this. We can do it if we work together, but this governor needs to reach out. You can't just take all the Democratic ideas and say, that's it, because these ideas that we talked about are not necessarily the right ideas for our state. and certainly the voting reform package that was passed. No one more than me wants to make sure people have access to voting, and the registration process and the voting process should be easy and transparent and user-friendly. Unfortunately, I think some of the packages that we passed yesterday, like the early voting reform, that comes with a significant financial impact to our counties and our local boards of elections. The governor didn't talk about any money being provided to them. The bills, when they passed, had no money attached to them. Having to stay open so many more days and being requiring that, having the polls open longer and on primary day when there really hasn't been a dramatic need or push for that, that's going to cost the local boards of elections more money. There's no money associated with any of that. Automatic voting, the same day registration, the day of the vote, certainly leaves it open for fraud, and that's going to also have costly implementation problems. Our infrastructure system, our funding for our local roads and bridges through the CHIPS program, that needs to be a priority. We've had a lot of success there, Brian, but we need to do a better job, and we're not doing it, and this doesn't do the right thing right now.
Will there be money for the roads in upstate with the Senate Republicans not having the majority anymore?
I don't know, Brian. That's going to be the battle with the budget we face. You know, I reached out I talked to Senator Tim Kennedy. He's the new chairman of the Transportation Committee. He's been very helpful in the past. And
the Buffalo Democrat, Senator Tim Kennedy.
Yes, he's a good guy, and he's been very helpful in the past. I saw him yesterday. I said, we're going to need you more than not ever. He said, let's sit down and talk. So that's what we need. We need people working together because the upstate roads and bridges need to be a part of, for the locals, need to be a part of this discussion. We can't just talk about infrastructure that make for a nice press release or a ribbon cutting for a subway station or an airport. Those are those sexy, glossy types of infrastructure projects, but they're not. You know, the people in our areas want roads and bridges. That maybe might make a no good for photo op, but it does serve an important product and product service. You know, how many of us put our kids on a school bus every morning that travels over a local road or bridge? How many of our first responders go over local roads and bridges on a regular basis? I mean, we don't want to be reactive to. We don't want to be reactionary. We want to be proactive. We don't want to be reacting to a tragedy when a bridge collapses. We need to be proactive and put those resources there. That's the things our task force that I worked with this fall worked on, and we're about to getting ready to release that report here in the next week or so, which is we believe is a blueprint for our leaders, both at every level and in the transportation department when we move forward. That needs to be a priority, and unfortunately the governor is not showing that priority. In fact, like I said, he didn't add any money for local infrastructure. In fact, he cut money for local infrastructure. To me,
Assemblyman, I'm so sorry, but we do have to leave it there. Assemblyman Phil Palmesano, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. As you can see, I'm worked up about this, but I'm going to keep fighting for the area because we need to.
All righty. Thank you so much, Assemblyman.
New Year's Warehouse Sales event has been extended until the end of January at Mullen Factory Direct Flooring in Almond. You'll save up to 75% on over 500,000 square feet of in-stock flooring. The major name brands, hardwoods, laminate, vinyl, and carpet. Keep your cash in your pocket and take advantage of special payment options like 0% interest to qualified buyers. If you're planning a flooring project, you can't miss this sale. The New Year's Warehouse Sales event's been extended till January 31st at Mullen Factory Direct Flooring in Almond. Don't miss out on these deals.
Checking in with meteorologist Rob Carroll. Rob, I see Allegheny County is slated to get, 7-8 inches of snow this weekend. What about Steuben County? I see the National Weather Service was saying it's going to get really Arctic cold winds for Steuben County. How about snow?
Well, it certainly looks like we've got some snow headed our way too, Brian. The National Weather Service has put a winter storm watch in effect starting at 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon. That runs through 4 p.m. on Sunday. There's going to be a storm system tracking up through the southern part of the state, potentially southern New England. That's going to bring us a fair amount of snowfall. And as you mentioned, what happens is as the storm goes by, it pulls Arctic air down out of Canada. We get very cold. It looks like a colder, snowier pattern for the second half of the month than we've seen thus far. Today, we're going to notice clouds on the increase ahead of a weak area of low pressure. We're going to be 25 to 30 today. Sunrise earlier, 7:35 this morning. It'll set tonight at 5:06. Now looking at 9.5 hours of daylight. We've picked up 25 minutes of daylight since the 21st of December. We'll be looking at snow arriving after midnight. Up to an inch may fall by morning. Lows will be 20 to 25. Snow will taper off to snow showers and flurries tomorrow with 30 to 35. Some widely scattered flurries tomorrow night, lows 10 to 15. Saturday, cloudy with snow returning in the afternoon, 20. And we'll see more snow Saturday night and on into Sunday, Brian. Right now, looks like a lot of us could see over 6 inches of snow from the weekend storm.